I think Jordan Peele is a terrific writer, which might sound odd when I'm about to list all his plot problems, but I think he creates relatable and interesting characters, throws them into some fucked up situations, and gets really compelling results. I also think he's a brilliant director, not just for the iconic shots he creates, but for the performances he gets out of his actors. You root for them to win. You want them to beat up the bad guys or the doppelgangers or the alien because you like them. That's hard to do in the horror genre. But you know who else is a terrific writer and a brilliant director, but also prone to plot problems? M. Night Shyamalan. Remember him?
No.
After a couple of big wins, the persistent plot problems that started with his second film, Unbreakable, and never really let up after that, saw this once lauded and awarded director become a punchline. Part of his problem was total control. Like Peele, Shyamalan wrote, produced, and directed his own movies, and the lack of a critical or contrary voice in each production was his downfall. His movies, for all their smarts, actually got dumber and dumber, and audiences tuned out. If Peele wants to avoid this, he needs to think twice about what he thinks he's getting away with. Audiences will forgive for a while, but eventually this list will be a lot longer. Get Out has some peripheral problems, like why call the police when you hit a deer? And hey, that's not how hypnosis works, but by and large, the biggest problem is, why is she dating him? I mean, I get it from a sadistic point of view, and I get it from a narrative one too. It gives Chris cause to be in the situation, but in terms of a secret society, maybe she shouldn't be dating the victims for 6 months before they kill him. And for sure, she shouldn't allow herself to be photographed with them. And definitely not meeting his friends. It's just poor strategic planning, especially since snatching a guy off the street is an option. The number of ways this can go tits up, which of course it invariably does, puts way too much risk on the operation. And I'm calling bullshit on this bit. I don't believe that in his panic to leave, Chris would open that cupboard and start casually flicking through photos. There must have been a better way for him to discover that. And then there's the stuffing in the ears. Yeah, that doesn't block out sound. Not to the extent that he can't hear at all. That's not how ears work. But the kicker is Rod in the final scenes. The original ending that was shot had Chris being arrested and going to jail, but Peele flipped it at the last minute and had him saved by Rod, which is great and all, but it meant there was a gaping problem on how Rod found him. Sure, he brushes it off with a gag about him being in the TSA, but no, seriously, how did he track him down? When you're left questioning these things, you're taken out of the movie, and sometimes those questions is all you remember about the movie. This was never more problematic than in his follow-up movie, Us. The central concept of the film, that the government created doubles of everyone to control the above-ground population, but the program failed and the doubles became tethered to their above-ground counterparts, sounds great at a pitch meeting but is quickly revealed as a flawed foundation the moment you ask a single follow-up question. Peele created a rod for his back when he decided to firmly plant the tethered in the real world. By making them clones by the government, he created a world of logistical problems for their existence, not the least of which being, what happens to the tethered when the real person leaves the country? Wouldn't the tethered have a ton of health problems that the real person went to the doctor for? Where are the tethered getting their props, like that t-shirt Adelaide wins at the fair? If the tethered were eating the rabbits, what were the rabbits eating? How has no one ever discovered these hundreds of millions of clones through accessible entrances, like when they built road tunnels or drilled for gas and oil? If they lack agency, who was maintaining the tunnels? When a light bulb went out, who replaced it? And where would they get the light bulb from? And so on. By giving the tethered a backstory, by creating their world, he created the rules, but then he systematically broke them. The tethered Adelaide who made it to the surface should not have been able to control the real Adelaide, yet we can see she does in the ballet scene. And the real Adelaide, the one who got trapped as a child and then led the uprising, really didn't need to explain the origins of the tethered to the actual tethered Adelaide. She used to live there. This is really starting to hurt my brain. These problems could have been averted by giving the tethered supernatural origins, or better yet, none at all. Did Peele really need to explain it? What does he gain from this? The real Adelaide still could have been swapped as a child, so he could have kept his twist, but he doesn't do himself any favors by spelling out government experiments and secret underground tunnels. The central premise feels half-baked, which is a shame because it takes away from an otherwise well-crafted and creepy movie. There's two major problems with Nope. The first one is going to sound nitpicky, but it matters. For the first half of the movie, we're led to believe it's an alien ship, so the fact that it emits some sort of electromagnetic pulse and disrupts power seems totally in line with what we believe a spaceship could do. But once we know it's an actual alien, an organic creature, the power disruption no longer makes sense. But dude, it's an alien, who knows what it can do? A little thing called science? Heard of it? It needs to be scientifically plausible, not factual, just possible. Sure, some animals can sense electric fields and use them to detect prey, and yes, I looked that up, but no animal can produce a biological EMP. That's not possible. The second one is OJ working out that if you don't look at the alien, it won't eat you. Reaching that conclusion is a big leap, but actually, it's the knock-on problem it creates because for the last 6 months, Jupe has been feeding it horses, and horses don't look up. Not sure if you've seen a horse up close, but those dudes have shifty eyes. They never really look like they're looking at you, and they're definitely not looking up and staring at the thing in the sky. Plus, Jupe has been hosting a viewing for the last 6 months, and presumably, they were all looking up too. Much like with us, he created a rule and then ran around breaking it. But here's my overall point. You see this girl here? She's the girl who got mauled by Gordy, and we know that, and so much more about her, simply in this shot. The sweatshirt with her childhood and famous face on it, the veil over her deformed face, waving to the crowd, still looking for the limelight, the relationship she still has with Jupe. Peele tells us so much about her in that single shot, with not a single line of exposition. We get to know where she is and where she used to be. And all I could think is, how did she get her buggy up there?